So I am Scott Dworkin. I am based in the Los Angeles area, a little north of Los Angeles in Ventura County. I have been in aviation. I'm a little bit of a wear a different hat depending on the day, photographer. So I started out I started out as a hobbyist like a lot of people did. The short version of my story is I grew up wanting to be a pilot myself in the military. Was going to air shows from a very young age. My parents took me to air shows and it became sort of my thing. And like a lot of people of my age group, when Top Gun came out, the first Top Gun, I have to say that because there was never going to be a sequel. Um, the first Top Gun came out, that sort of fueled the fire even more. So I
Sure.
kind of honed in on I want to be a naval aviator now. And when I have no family with a military background, my uncle was in the Air Force very briefly in the 50s. Really no military background with my family. And so when I graduated high school, I went to college in San Diego, and obviously I really never wanted to go to one of the service academies. I didn't have the grades anyway, but it was kind of because of the fact that I had no military background. I knew what I wanted to do, but was kind of like the deal with my parents too was go to college. There's ROTC, there's officer OCS or OTS, depending on the service branch, which is after college, you get a commission. You know, I kind of made that deal with them that I would go to San Diego, start school, see what it was about, see what how hard it was to, study and do things like that. But after my first year at San Diego State, I kind of said, okay, I still want to do this. And I walked over to the Navy, and they have an ROTC detachment in San Diego. And I said, this is what I want to do. And they said no. I was in school in 92, 93. I graduated high school in 1991. So I went to San Diego 92. And that was after the first Gulf War had ended.
Mm,
So there was no, and I've told this story on a couple other podcasts, but it kind of creates the narrative that there was no plan for any more wars. There never is. So, Second Gulf War hadn't happened. Everything was hunky dory. And the military kind of looked at that and it was in a drawdown phase. And so at that point, the various, at least the Navy at that point, they had been inundated in the late 80s with pilot cadets and candidates and people wanting to be aviators. And they were just flat out saying no. Unless
wow.
you were at the Naval Academy with an engineering type of degree and a high grade point average, we're not even taking anybody into these other programs because we don't want to have them go through it and then find out there's no pilot slots available for you. And at that point, they were, um, pilot guys who were qualifying to be pilots who were getting their commission in the Navy were being what they call stashed away. They were sitting at desks for a long time with the hope that a slot would open up in training. So they just said no to me. And so then the commander that I met at the time was like, why don't you go talk to the Air Force? Because they fly more airplanes, they have a much broader range of aircraft, and you might have a better chance. So I did that. And I went and talked to the Air Force, and they kind of said the same thing, but they said, but we'll take you in the program. We're not going to say no, because their attitude was, we also need officers in the Air
Right.
Force, not just pilots. The Air Force is made up of a lot of different jobs. So they said, it's a gamble, but we'll take you. And so I did that and went through the program. And I was in a different timeline because I should have joined as a freshman, but I didn't. So they sort of accelerated everything. But long story short, I got to a point where they came to me and said, it's time to sign the dotted line.
Mm,
And part of ROTC, for a lot of people listening, like there are ROTC scholarships and things like that where they're providing money for tuition, and then you're sort of committed. I
mhm.
didn't have any of that. I just walked in there of my own volition. I got a uniform, I got some books, I was required to take military classes along with my regular classes, and then also, one day a week of like marching and doing that stuff. And so I had really nothing. It was just no commitment to them other than hope. And they came to me and said, listen, we need you to sign because you've missed the first year and we're kind of rushing you through. And the next summer, you're going to have to go to a basic training and we need a commitment. And the colonel that was running our detachment at the time said, "Listen, but I'm going to be honest with you. I do not think you're going to get a pilot slot. There's just not that many. And they're really only
Right.
going to the academy, and the few that are sprinkled around are going to go to our engineering students with 4.0 degrees, and you have a psychology major with a B average. Just the reality." So the nice thing about it was at the time he thought, I'd grown up with this passion. I had airplane pictures on my wall as a kid. I had model kits, that I was that guy. We went to Luke Air Force Base as a group, as a ROTC group, and he picked 10 cadets to get to fly in F-16s. Now, normally that only went to people who were commissioned, like had taken scholarship money, had already signed the paperwork, were going in. I was the only one that he picked that wasn't. It was just because he felt partly, you're not going to get to do this. I think it was like sympathy, like, I want you to at least once see what it was like, and then partly because he thought it would motivate me to stay in and take the chance, and I did
Right.
it, and, I just decided not to stay. It wasn't anything, I didn't know that until after. He told me after why he did it, and he kinda came to me the week after we got back from Arizona from this trip and said, "I did this for a reason, and I hope you will stay, because whether you're a pilot or not, you're the type of person that I would like to have as a leader in the Air Force." But he said,
Nice.
I need you to go, go home, talk to your parents. Here's the type of list of jobs you could get as a commissioned officer, and maybe at some point you can make a transition into aviation. Here's some jobs where you would wear a flight suit to work every day if that's what it's about for you, which it wasn't. It wasn't about the look. And I went home and talked to my parents and said, it was never, and I know I had no disrespect to anybody that did this for these reasons, but it was never about joining the military for the sake of that. I wanted to be a pilot. And
Right.
so I
That
kind of
was the
said,
path.
yeah. So I have friends that are in the military that joined because of post 9/11 and the love of country and all these different things. For me, this was my goal. It wasn't going to happen. So I walked away and turned in my uniform books and walked away and graduated college and went into the real world. And before that, as I mentioned, I had gone to air shows as a kid. I had my mom's film camera, took crappy photos at the air shows that now I look at the little, used to take them to the photo mat or whatever back in the old days, little 4x6s. And when I gave up that dream, um, for better or for worse, I sort of walked away from all of it.
Mm.
And I went to work in marketing research for a few years. I was an intern when I moved back to Los Angeles. I was an intern at a marketing research firm and then got a job there after college. And did that for a few years. And my dad has been in the textile industry for now going on 50 some odd years, but at the time, for many years. He had left a company that he was the vice president of, started his own business. And again, growing up wanting to be maverick, you know, um, every time he would like talk to me about his work, it was like, hey, we live a great life and you've provided for us well, but it's not something I would ever want to do. When I left the marketing research job and started looking for other jobs, he came to me and said, "Hey, Scott, listen, I have my own business. It's just me. I'm going to offer you one more time. Spend 3 months with me, go out in the car with me, see what it's about." And I was like, at that point, having spent a little time in the real world, I was like, gift horse, I got to be realistic here. And so I went out with him and I started working with him. And during that time, my parents, I think I had started dating my wife, but I know my wife now, but at the time, even my parents and she, both of them were like, "It's very strange that you had this passion from like 5 years old, literally, model kits and the whole, you name it, and because you couldn't do this, you took all of that." And I literally, it was like somebody died and I never dealt with it. I just put it in a
Mm.
box and put it in storage, like literally.
Yep. Mhm.
All the photo albums, everything went into storage. And, my parents had said it a few, it's like kind of unhealthy, but also, it's a little strange. And I said, yeah, but this is just who I am. If I can't do what I wanted to do, why would I want to be around this? But they sort of made me realize that maybe wasn't the right way to go at it. And then my wife, girlfriend at the time, said the same thing. And there were happened to be an air show coming up at Point Magoo, which is down the street from where I live now, and that's the one I grew up going to, and I thought, "You know what? I'll go. Why not?" And my mom, again, they had always had a camera in the house, so I took their digital camera, and as soon as I got to the air show, it was like, click, like, it just came all flooding back, and I'm like, "You know what? This is still something I enjoy." I mean, I'm the guy that, like, if an airplane's flying over, I'm like this still, even
Mm.
at my age. Like, helicopter flies over, I run outside to see what it is.